At this point, gentlemen, in our program, we want to give you each a chance, beginning with Mr. Pettigrew. You may ask of any other of the candidates a question, and then they will have a chance to respond.
Sometimes I wonder if this is like school. If you don't paddle them too hard, they don't paddle you back. But I did think through this one a little bit. I do want to ask the question of my good friend Georger Faught, and that is, we just talked about this on winning the district. And I know that there are a number of people that are associated or affiliated with your campaign, even some that are on the Economic Advisory Council, that favor the sale of water to Texas and to other entities. How will you combat that with that perception, and how will you, obviously with Democrats already coming out with ads showing someone squirting water in Texas, we've all seen Rob Wallace's ad, how will you defend that to keep from getting, from us losing the seat if you were the nominee in November?
Okay, well, I appreciate the question. I guess I don't understand where you're going, because as far as anyone on our Economic Advisory Council, they are all for protecting the water source. We've got several folks from southeast Oklahoma who are very involved. I mean, we've got three groups of, we've got landowners, we've got tribes, we've got the entities in the area that have water rights, and they all want to protect their water rights. So I honestly don't know where that question's coming from, but let me state it very clearly. I mean, the water that's in southeast Oklahoma ought to remain in southeast Oklahoma, or at least the benefit of it should remain here. What happens, and we've seen this, and Wayne has probably seen this as well, is that legislators from Tulsa and Oklahoma City think they run the state, and they think that they control everything. You know, that water is the resource of this southern eastern part, and so there's no truth in what he's saying, but we will connect the entire 2nd District together and build for the best unity of the district. It's one of the poorest. That's why the Economic Advisory Council is in place, to put business leaders in touch with each other to find out how we can better the entire 2nd District. So there's no one that's wanting to sell water on my Economic Advisory Council.
Mr. Rowe. Ask to the right. It's asking.
You know, Brother Lynn, I'm not planning to vote for any of these guys. I don't really think I want to know from them. But I will ask to the right to keep the tradition. And Brother Dwayne, you better throw me a softball. Wayne, I've enjoyed campaigning with you. I hear that you've, you had a distinguished career in the Oklahoma legislature and carried the conservative banner, and I appreciate that. Is there a vote that you regret, or if you had to do it over again during your time in the legislature, that you would vote differently?
Well, I would say anybody that has no regrets has not lived life. But none come to mind immediately. I would tell you one of the proudest votes that I had was to balance our budgets, obviously. We balanced the budget every time we had a vote. I had a number of conservative votes. I was named a top 10 conservative legislator, not just of 1 year, but of the last 20 years. And I don't think anybody else that has served has ever attained that title, obviously. I had a 98% pro-business voting record for the 10 years that I was there consecutively. 100% NRA, 100% pro-life. Again, I was one of the authors of the partial birth abortion ban, one of the authors of the concealed carry ban, the concealed carry legislation, one of the principal authors of the car tag legislation, welfare reform, a number of things. One of the proudest moments of my career was that I always felt like I was a worker. I was one of the first groups elected after term limits went into effect, and so folks, the day I walked in the door, I knew I couldn't stay. I was there for a temporary period of time to fix things and go home. And that's what I did. I served 10 years, ended up taking my company public in 2004, and then going back into the private sector. I've been exclusively back in the private sector. Probably should have stayed more involved in politics if I knew this was going to come up, but really didn't get involved until I saw what was going on with our country debt-wise when the debt ceiling piece came up last year, and that's what got me back hyper-involved, and obviously we need to address this very quickly. So not that I can think of, again, I apologize if I had more time, I'm sure I could think of something.
Mr. Thompson.
Well, let's just do away with the old statement, pastors are always nice. We can get rid of that. I got a question, Dustin. Here's a good one for you, an easy one for you, because I know you know the Constitution, you love it like I do. In Article 3, it talks about, in the judicial system, it talks about good behavior of justices. Would you please explain to us what you understand what that means and how you would implement that?
Well, I've talked primarily through the campaign about Article 1, which is Congress's duties. I've talked a lot about Congress has abrogated its duties to the executive branch. Article 3, talking about the judiciary, I've said that the war on this country, the next 4 years if Obama's reelected, we've had a physical war the last 4 years that's been burdened on the American people, and I've talked a lot about the debt. But the next 4 years, Dwayne, is going to present to this country a social war by the Obama administration. And I'm afraid to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that war may very well be fought out in the courtrooms of this country. You can see in the Ninth Circuit the lawsuits that are being filed in that radical Ninth Circuit, folks. That's the California District Courts. These judges that are placed on the bench for life, we have to look before we put them on the bench, and I understand it's the Senate that confirms them, but the House of Representatives has some input sometimes with the delegation, that we put people on the bench that understand and appreciate constitutional law in this country. And that is a constitution that means the same thing today than it means when it was written 237 years ago. So if we do that, we don't have to get into good and bad behavior from judges. I want a judge that will uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, a Constitution that, when it was written, it protected life, a core value of this country, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We had abortion brought into this country by one judge on the Supreme Court in 1973. We have to have judges that will uphold the Constitution. In my opinion, that's good behavior.
Mr. Wood.
The first time I'm flummoxed. I guess I've got to, do I have to ask a question or just make a comment? Yeah, I guess my frustration has been that the entire campaign series, whatever, has been completely devoid of any kind of debate formats. You or somebody like you in other counties ask questions. Everybody gives carefully crafted replies. There hasn't been talking points, but nobody has ever challenged or questioned. I have heard so many comments made by all the candidates that are just flat out wrong. I mean, it's just an incorrect, flawed understanding of what goes on in our government, of how the country works, of how the world works, about what's capable and possible at Washington, D.C. level. And I just know it's from lack of experience at the national and international level. So I'm not sure what question to ask that covers the depth and breadth of that. I will say this, and I'll go out on a limb. I think because of the number of candidates running, that it will probably go to a runoff. I just don't think that anybody's going to garner 51% of the vote or more. I think, in my gut, based on polling, that it's going to be George Faught and myself. So if George and I make the runoff, would he agree to a series of one-on-one debates over the following 6 weeks?
Well, obviously, time permitting, if you and I wind up as in the runoff, then I'm sure that we could probably have a couple of debates in that short period of time, and would welcome that. My turn to ask a question?
Yes, sir.
What is your name over on the right? Just kidding. Sorry about that. Well, as far as kind of threw me for a loop whenever you said asking somebody else a question. So, there's one here that I probably would have liked to ask a question, but not here. Let me just go back to Dakota. Obviously, everybody makes a lot of claims. I balanced all the budgets. I'm one of 101 and all that, and we hear a bunch of claims. I heard you mention just in your opening remarks and on your TV commercial that you were personally responsible saving the taxpayers $14 billion. Could you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, the Marine Corps had pursued a weapon system called the Expeditionary Fighting Vehicle for over 20 years. A lot was demanded of this particular capability. It was going to be the premier weapon or vehicle storming the beaches. It was the #1 acquisition priority for 2 decades. A series of commandants had gone before multiple Congresses saying that absolutely top priority. But in order for this thing to work, several compromises had to be made. It couldn't carry the armor it was supposed to use. They'd use 60% of its fuel actually getting to the beach, means you have to refuel it on the beach. Didn't have the armor protection to survive in a heavy anti-armor environment. And so there was a lot wrong with it. $14 billion program, General Dynamics, the largest defense contractor in the world, was a prime contractor for it. And they were at the verge of having half a dozen or so prototypes that were in test and evaluation and were soon to move to low-rate initial production on that. I was asked to write a series of papers, which I did, that pointed out the flaws in the program, the lack of an operational concept, the vulnerabilities, the fact that it was going to get Marines killed, that it would waste $14 billion, and working with a very well-placed person, which I can't name here at this table, was influential in convincing the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Navy, and the Commandant of the Marine Corps to cancel the program, right at the verge of it going into production. So $14 billion not spent, lives of Marines saved, and the service put on notice that they had to come up with a logically sound operational concept and the capabilities that actually win in war, and not just